Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual podcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played for years with the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. And this is the Laidlaw and Allen Report, come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And Tom, I want to start out today's podcast talking about the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yes,
And the reason I want to do that is because they're following like a pattern that was established by the New York Rangers, by where they sent out a letter to season ticket holders to said, look, we're going to rebuild.
Right.
Now, you could have never have done that 10 or 15 years ago. Right. People would have been up in arms. Yeah. And when the Rangers did it, they weren't that far out of a playoff spot. Right. But here's my take on it. I want to get your take on it. But my take on it is that we now have two levels of rooting for our teams. And it really breaks down by age, I think. I think the older generation, we're not on board necessarily. We understand it, but we're not on board with tanking to get a better draft pick. Right. There's something about it that kind of bothers us, but we understand why the younger generation is into that. And, it gives you another level in which to root. Like you and I, we root for our teams. We want them to win every week. I'm not worried about what the draft pick's going to be. I just want them to win. That's why I watch the Detroit Lions. I just want them to win. But last year, my sons, they were rooting in the end for them to lose so they'd get a better draft pick. And sure. That's totally accepted now. Yeah. From that generation, and they would argue that's a sophisticated approach.
Sure. You're rooting for your team to lose,
yeah, that's a sophisticated approach, and that you're not being bright if you just accept the losses without seeing some form of strategy in it. Right. So now in hockey, ever since Connor McDavid, that's become acceptable. From the league perspective as well. Like, the Maple Leafs stripped it down to the chassis. The Buffalo Sabres were trying to get Connor McDavid, ended up with Jack Eichel. We see that as a way to go to help out. So, now the Blackhawks are going to do it, and there's a big but here. And the big but is they've told their core players, and we all know who those are, Taves and Kane and Duncan, Duncan Keith, and Seabrook. Look, we're going to honor the contracts. You'll be a part of it all. You're just going to have to rebuild with us. And that's trickier, I think.
Ooh, man, yeah.
That's trickier to try to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. How do you view that? And as a former player, how do you think those players are handling that?
Interesting. It's kind of a really, I'd say unique situation. So that core group of guys has already won their cups. So it's not like they're guys like right. Lundqvist or Ray Bourque. They're going through a rebuild and aren't going to get a chance to win. They've already won their cup, so that's out of the way. But they're still proud guys they're used to winning and they want to continue to win. And it was interesting. Taves just a while ago when they let Crawford go to sign someplace else, he came up with the comments and says, "Well, I've never been told there's a rebuild here." And now they're coming out making a statement that there's a rebuild. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I mean, you're proud guys, and yes, you want to do the right thing. Like hockey players are really good as they get older, as helping the young guys come in. I was helped by many guys, particularly Carol Vadnais when I came in to play. He was great to me and teaching me the game and things to do and not to do. And I'm sure Taves and Kane and Seabrook and those guys will do that as well. But man, you got four guys that are great players, have had great careers and have won. Now to go through a rebuild. And I guess the good thing is too that you can look at the Rangers. Boston did a rebuild too, and you can say, okay, the rebuild, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel with the rebuild. It's it's not going to take forever, 3 or 4 years. Now you get a good team back again. But man, that's a good 3 or 4 years out of those players' careers, near the end of their careers, where I just don't know if that works. I mean, how happy are they going to be in that locker room, that group of guys going through a rebuild like that? That's my concern. Is that locker room going to be solid enough to do what they need to do?
Well, it's interesting. Like if it worked the way it worked for the Rangers, it didn't take that long.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they got a little lucky. Their first overall pick of the draft this year, second overall draft last year. They were able to sign Panarin, and they were able to sign Trouba. So that escalated the pace. You're right. But but there's no guarantee you're going to get the first and second pick overall in consecutive years, right?
Well, and there's no, you not only do you have to be bad, but you got to be bad at the right time. Like the Edmonton Oilers got number 1 picks, but it didn't lead to any kind of turnaround, let alone a quick one.
Well, again, they didn't, in my mind, obviously didn't do it right. They didn't have those character guys in the locker room. Now, Chicago has the character guys in the locker room. The question is, do they want to stay in that locker room during the rebuild?
Yeah, it really is tricky. I look at this and I think that they won a playoff round.
Yeah,
so that's now you can make a really good argument that they didn't deserve to be there in the playoffs. Like they were, the team you could have cut it off before then. I think everybody thought 24 was probably too many teams. It worked out great for the format, but maybe it should have been 20 and not 24, but that's not good for the format. They moved outside, they moved out their goaltending, and they didn't go out and get another goaltender. They're going from within, and that's always,
I know. You're sitting there. I mean, right now they're not playing. Now the season starts again next year, and they start losing games 7-2 and 6-1 and stuff like that. With and bad goaltending is part of the reason why that's happening. I mean, how long are those core guys going to be wanting to do that? It's easy to say that now during the off season because you're not losing those hockey games. But once you start losing those hockey games, now here's the other thing too is so all 4 of those core guys that you mentioned have been lifelong Chicago Blackhawks, correct? So they've all started their careers there, and so now you see like a Joe Thornton now leaving San Jose. That's a big decision, right? Played almost his whole career, bulk of his career there in San Jose. Now goes to leave, goes to Toronto, and that's what's your fan base and everything too? If it doesn't work, it's just a unique situation, I think, because I guess it was similar in New York, but it was really just Henrik Lundqvist was the one guy really, right? And he hadn't won. And it was clear, it was clear that he was getting to the end of his career and they knew they had this other great, Georgiev and Shesterkin come along as goaltenders. So I don't know. I just don't see it. I'd be open with it. I just don't think it's going to work. I think once the season gets going, I just don't see those guys being happy being in that locker room.
Well, it'd be interesting because, the defensemen are untradeable. You're not going to be able to trade either of them. I think you could trade Patrick Kane and Taves.
Yes, totally. Absolutely. Kane especially. And Taves had a kind of a comeback year last year, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Patrick Kane is a superstar, and a lot of that is his compete level. Like he's there every game.
Yeah. You don't think you get much for Keith?
Pardon me?
You don't think you get much for Duncan Keith?
I think you'd have to eat a little bit of salary for him.
Right. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, he can still play.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I.
When you talk about Edmonton, that's the kind of place that could use the Duncan Keith, right? That experienced guys to show them how to win, right?
Yeah, but they need. I think they need a guy in his prime. Yeah. So that would be my take on that. But it's interesting. Like they have some younger players to bring. Cat, Strome.
Yeah.
Those are good younger players. Doc stepped in. He'll probably be their number 2 center this year. And of course, the big forward who was in the Rookie of the Year conversation last year, who was a 20-goal scorer, whose name right now is right on the tip of my tongue, and it's not coming to me.
It's the way it works for both of us.
Yeah, no, that's what happens when you get our age. But so they've got younger players who are established. Right. These are guys that we know that they can play in the league, and we know that they can have an impact. So that you got to factor that in. But they have no goaltending, so they'll have to look around and maybe try to cut a deal for a younger goaltender that maybe they can.
Why not? As you're talking about that now, why not just keep Crawford then?
So I didn't understand that.
Yeah. My gut feel is, and again, I'm not sitting in the room with them, and they've made some great moves in the past, and they've won cups and everything. But I almost think that they're overthinking it. It's like they're wanting to do a rebuild too bad. It's like they're looking to do a rebuild.
I think they are looking to do a rebuild.
Yeah, but not necessarily though. I mean, I think, like you said, they've got all those good young players coming along. They had an established goaltender who, I don't think he probably wasn't looking for like a 5-year contract. I mean, just keep the goaltender you've got. You know, you're solid goaltending. Get another goaltender on the coming up and everything. You know, you get Taves and Kane, who are both good leaders that have won before. I just don't see that one does. Clearly with the Rangers, I thought that was a great move. They were still in somewhat of a playoff hockey team. They weren't that far off, but they took a look at the lineup and they realized, okay, but we may be good right now, but we're not. We want to be great for many years to come. And we had to make that change. I just think with that team there, I just don't think with Chicago. I don't agree with that one as much. But
well, it's interesting too. Rocky Wirtz really, I think, was a breath of fresh air as a owner after his dad died. He took over the team. He brought new ideas in, and he was not afraid of marketing. He brought some of the former greats back. Bobby Hull and. They had the ambassador, Stan Mikita, before he passed away, did it for a while as well, Tony Esposito. And he tried to sort of connect with fans. And, this has been part of his decision too. Like, Joel Quenneville, of course, moved out after he won 3 Stanley Cups. And, McDonough, who was their, president, who came over from the Cubs, who had been around the block and is well known in Chicago, was moved out. Well, now all that's left is Stan Bowman. So if I'm Stan Bowman and we're doing a rebuild, I'm wondering whether I'm going to be around to see it through till the end. You would guess no.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree. Yeah, I don't get that one as much, but like I said, then Bowman's got his father there helping him too, Scotty Bowman, the legendary coach. That obviously he's been around a lot of winning, so he's got him to lean on as well. But I don't agree with that one as much. But the other ones I'm not getting either. I know I'm not liking what Toronto's doing, to be honest with you. Like what does the Joe Thornton signing? I know it wasn't very much money, $700,000, but to me, I just don't think that's a fit. Joe Thornton isn't. I would think that Joe Thornton isn't even a top 9 forward on that team. That's not probably the way they're looking at him. And you're gonna have Joe Thornton be a 4th line guy. I mean, I'm
gonna disagree with you on that. I think I love that signing, and this is why. And I know in a salary cap era, you got to have those bottom 7 guys. That you got to be making under $1 million. That's just you can't really make it work unless you do that.
Yep.
And generally you try to make it younger guys, but Joe Thornton isn't preventing anybody from coming up. And we all know what a good guy Joe Thornton is. Like anybody who's ever spoken to him, he's very respected around the league. Like I think having a guy like him around in the dressing room. And especially with the compressed schedule, he could slide up and down. Like, is he a step and a half slower? For sure.
Right.
Is he the player he once was? No. But he can still pass the puck. And, they're talking about second power play unit, 4th line, 9-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I just don't see how you can go wrong for $700,000. Like, who's the guy you're going to bring in that's going to be more beneficial to the team over Joe Thornton for that amount of money? I mean, they're capped out.
I'd have some guy that's a 4th liner. Joe Thornton is not a 4th line hockey player to me. Like 4th liners are built differently than 1st line hockey players. 1st line hockey players need to get 20 plus minutes a game to perform. They need to be in the game more often. Joe Thornton is going to be sitting on the bench for the majority of the game, and then they're going to throw him out there on the second power play and assume that he's going to be the Joe Thornton he was in the past. I just don't think it works like that. I just don't think that he's built that way to be that 4th line player. That's plus they've done things like they brought in Zach Bogosian, who played an important role for Tampa during the playoffs, but I just don't think he's built to be a guy. Like he's a guy that like Maroon. I was just talking about Zach Bogosian there too, how they added him in Toronto, and I'm following through, kind of saying I don't like what they're doing there. Like Zach Bogosian is the kind of guy that same thing as Patrick Maroon. He's known as a guy that can help you win the playoffs, but he doesn't help you get in the playoffs. Like,
here's what I say about Bogosian. I don't know why he would. If he had a chance to stay in Tampa, he should have begged them to keep him.
Totally.
Because it brought his career back to life.
Yeah.
Like, and I would have said to Tampa Bay Lightning, I mean, you only got $1 million from. I shouldn't say only. It's $1 million, but you got $1 million from Toronto And I would have said, I will take $700,000 if I can stay here, because, it got his career back on track. He was an important part of a team again. Now he's going to go to Toronto. And
but yeah, Toronto's going from being that speed team up and down the ice, flying up and down the ice, and now Bogosian at the end of his career slower. Thornton at the end of his career slower. Wayne Simmons at the end of his career slower. And you want these guys to come in and make a difference. I just don't. I listen. And again, Kyle Dubas. Everybody says how intelligent he is.
I didn't like the Simmons.
Yeah, and it's just he to me, he can't figure out what kind of team he wants to build. It looks like now he's changing his mind about the kind of team that he wants to have there, and that to me is like you're changing gears. It's just like you've got two different teams. Kind of, you've got the speed guys in Marner and Austin Matthews, and now you're going ahead. Now you're trying to have that crash and bang team, and to me, it's that. I don't necessarily like what they're doing. And Jimmy Vesey too. I don't mind that one as much. I mean, he can skate a little bit better and isn't as old. But if they're not looking at him to add any toughness, I don't think, because that's not his game at all. So that's my take, Mr. Allen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that and they already had Spezza too.
I know.
Too, and now you're going to have.
And they had the Patrick Marleau thing. I mean, they had him there. I mean, I guess he was supposed to be a really good leader and all that kinds of stuff. But I mean, as far as playing, it just didn't. It wasn't working. So I don't know. Listen, Joe Thornton's going there because he thinks he's going to win the Stanley Cup. That's all that's the comments he's making. But I don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah, no, he's for sure, and it's close enough. I think his relatives can come and see him play, and at this stage in his career, it just seemed like a good move for him. I didn't mind it because nothing was sacrificed. He's actually less, and I pointed this out to people, he's less than an entry level rookie.
Well,
because he's at the very level.
You're right. It doesn't take up much cap space, but it does take up a lot of space in your locker room. Like he's not that, like he's a personality, right? And used to being a big part of the team. And he may be a big part of the team in the locker room, but he's not going to be a big part of the team on the ice. If he's a big part of the team on the ice, they're in trouble.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's thinking he's going to be that. What I think is they think this is a compressed schedule. Like no matter how many games we play, we're going to have a bunch of games. Right. Like I wouldn't even be shocked if they said to him, you're only going to play, 3/4 of the games or 2/3 of the games. And so although they're one of the teams that we haven't talked much about this, but I've seen a couple or three teams now say that instead of carrying 23 players, they're going to carry 20 or 21, and for the cap space reasons, and try to just when they have injuries, send them up and down. But you can get caught on that.
Yeah, totally.
When depending on where your minor league team is located.
You're out on the road someplace. You're playing back-to-back games, and then you get guys injured in a certain. Like you get guys in on time too, right? So, yeah. I agree. How about our boy Doc Emrick? What are your thoughts on him retiring? Were you surprised by that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have, I wrote his book with him, and that actually came out yesterday.
Right.
So the time, and people thought this was timed by that, but it wasn't. Right. Totally coincidence that he retired on the day that before his book was released. Yeah, I mean, this is it's kind of a bittersweet day, I think, for him and for all of his fans, because on one hand, he's going to have time with his wife to do some other things now. For a lot of years, recently he's curtailed his schedule, but for a lot of years he was doing more than 100 games a year, and now he and his wife Joyce will be able to do a little bit of traveling and spend more time with their passion, which is animals. A lot of people know about Mike Emrick and his dogs, but they actually own horses too, and they're rescue horses. Wow. That they've gone out and bought horses that weren't headed for the pasture, if you know what I mean.
What always impressed me about him, like his passion for the game too. Like he was open to talking about how he liked fighting. And he knew stories about the players. Like it was all like I wasn't around him that much, but I think the last time I saw him, we were playing the outdoor alumni game down in Philadelphia several years ago. And the night before we had a little get together, and he was there. And he would, every time he saw me, what he would remember about me is when I took my truck driving class. I've ever told him for the truck
Oh
driver.
yeah.
So whenever I see him, he'd come over and in front of everybody, he'd go, Tom Laidlaw, the truck driving school. And he'd go on and he'd tell the story, and he loved the story. Like, and it just whenever you're around him, that seemed like he was just the passion for the game, whatever it is. Happened to be the truck driving story, other things that he talked about as well. But he was, I loved him. He's great to listen to, but he was good.
Yeah, and just a terrific guy, and
it's not everybody loved him too, right?
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And it was like having your high school English teacher talking hockey with you, and because he was very professorial. In fact, he was a college professor. His nickname Doc comes from the fact that he has a PhD.
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, he has a PhD. He taught in I can't remember which college. Geneva comes to mind, but man, that might be wrong. But he taught some English in college, and the NBC figured out that he had 100 different ways to describe a shot or a pass.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and I know some people didn't like the way he did things. He wouldn't say that. He wouldn't just say he cleared the puck out of the zone. He would say he shuffleboarded it, or he poked it, or he just had different ways of saying that. But I really always have felt that his call of the game sort of gave the game a little bit of a push, and some non-hockey fans, got caught up in Mike Emmerich's call of the game, which, it was almost poetic.
Yeah.
The way he described the game. And,
he was fantastic for TV. Yeah. I mean, he made it, you're going to have some bad games some nights, and he would make it right with the way he called it. Absolutely.
Yeah. 100 seconds to go in the game.
Yeah. Yes. And he'd always be saying the birthdays to players,
right.
Players. Like, he had his little things that was just like, you just looked forward to him doing the game because it was something special. So now, that Susan Brooks is a very intelligent young woman here, so she thinks like me quite a bit. Does Kenny Albert become the number one?
Well, I'm going to put out 3 or 4 names, and I'll explain what each one could bring. Kenny Albert is the logical choice because he's been the number 2, and he's a pro's pro.
Yeah.
So the big question would be, for him is, he does a lot of other things, and he does football. He's connected with the Rangers. So is this what he wants to do? Now, everybody looks at Doc now and they see he, does just the game of the week and then mostly the playoffs. Well, that's not what they're going to want from the next guy. And when Doc started out, he was doing a lot of games.
Yeah.
So this guy who's going to replace him is going to do a lot of games.
Yeah.
So, is Kenny going to want it? Is he the guy they want? Do they want someone who's a little more distinguished by his approach?
Right.
They want a guy like Forsland, who's available. He's a free agent, let go by the Carolina Hurricanes, who has done a lot of games for him too.
So he got let go by the Hurricanes. That's right. Yes. Wow.
So, and John does a great job. He's his call, I think, is memorable. It's distinct.
Yeah.
I think he's got a chance. And the other name I've heard, and I wouldn't completely rule it out, is Mike Tirico. Tirico lives in Michigan.
Yeah.
But, Mike does a lot of things too. Notre Dame football. He does golf. He want to give that up.
Right. He's good too. I like him too. He's good.
No, he's really good.
Yeah.
Too. So a lot of good choices for NBC. I wouldn't want to be any of them following Mike Emmerich, because that's, you follow a legend, that's almost impossible because everyone's always comparing you, and there's just one Mike Emmerich, so it's really going to be unfair. But it's it's going to be difficult. Now, whoever it is, they're going to have Eddie Olchuk there as his analyst. So,
and my former client Brian Boucher is really doing well there as well in between classes.
Doing terrific, like he's one of the new kind of stars of NBC in my opinion. So,
and what's funny too? Like people, he's starting to be a little bit more of himself because he is very funny. Like he's great with impressions. Right. He did a Dominic Hasek impression that's just fantastic. He actually one time when he was in Philadelphia, where we were doing a contract negotiation, and remember the reporter Tim Panaccio?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I'd gotten to be somewhat friendly with Tim Panaccio. Like he was always calling because I had Boucher there, Damon Lanco, and Andy Delmore as clients. And we're in the middle of a negotiation, and Brad Boucher called me up pretending to be Tim Panaccio. and did it perfect. Like, so I thought I was really talking to Tim Panaccio.
Oh my gosh.
He starts asking me questions. So I turn on the agent thing, and I'm trying to be careful what I'm saying because we're in the middle of negotiation. Now, Bush doesn't know that he's got me fooled. He thinks that I'm on to that. I know it's Brad Boucher. I really think I'm talking to Tim Panaccio.
Oh my gosh.
We were on for a while, and finally Bush goes, "Hey, Tommy, it's Bush." He told
That's
me,
hilarious.
he's good. Like, and I don't know if there's a time and place for it or not on the show, on TV for it, but he's a very funny guy.
Yeah, no, I think they're they'd love to sort of expand his role a little bit, just because, and his I forgot what it's called, but his popularity, his Q ratio or whatever it is quite high. Like, people, he's very likable.
Right. Very opposite of Mike Milbury, our buddy Mike Milbury.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen there.
I don't think you're going to see it back. He's not a well-liked person. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
on our Sunday Cookie show, he's over on the other wall with the mayor of New York City all by themselves. So he's not a well-liked guy there.
No, not at all. Eh?
It's over all by himself. Yeah.
Well, you should invite him to, he's a former Islander. You should invite him to the Rangers telecast. See how that goes.
That would be classic, having him on the show. Yeah, that'd be good.
Well, I tell you what, he's such a lightning rod. You'd probably have pretty strong ratings if he was on there.
Well, we had Phil Esposito on, and we all totally admired Phil. And I think I told the story how he was comical because, first of all, he couldn't get on, couldn't do the technology, so we just had him on the phone. And he asked me before the show. He says, "Tom, can I swear on the show?" I said, "Well, Phil, we're trying to keep it kind of PG, And he says, "Okay." So he got on, and every other word was the F-bomb. And finally, at one point, I figured I'd try to point out to him that he was setting a new record for dropping the F-bomb, and I said that to him, and it didn't stop him at all. He just kept going and going. The fans actually liked it; they thought it was pretty funny. But I was like, "Oh God!"
Yeah, the one thing about Phil Esposito, now that you brought him up, that I think has been forgotten, and maybe it's appropriate to bring it up considering they just won their second Stanley Cup. But the Tampa Bay Lightning franchise was born on the strength of his personality.
Yeah, no question.
Like, he didn't that's my grandson, by the way.
That's all right. That's okay.
He didn't have his ducks in a row financially, but he was committed. He said, well, "I'll come up with the money."
Yeah.
And he got that sort of came sort of after the fact.
Yep.
But he was a hockey guy, and he went in there and sold the league on the idea that this was a great place, and he had done some marketing and done a good job. But I'm telling you, without Esposito, shepherding that franchise, who knows whether it would have gotten through. He was a force. He was a personality. So.
Totally, and that's how he was as a player. Because when we watched him, he wasn't a great skater. He really didn't have he wasn't a super skilled guy like a Bobby Orr or something like that. He just willed himself to be an NHL hockey player. I'll never forget during the 72 series against the Russians, Canada and Russia, and it was that 8-game series was supposed to be an exhibition, and the Russians were beating Canada. And after a game, he got up in front, like on TV, and talked to the whole country and just kind of lectured the whole country of Canada that they got to stop booing and get this. And
I remember that distinctly.
Yeah.
Hockey night in Canada, it was on early in the morning, and sitting watching that. He was sitting in there in the interview room, and he's sweating, and he just told them what was what.
I'll tell you, I will never forget one of the highlights of my life. So all my life, I'm dreaming of playing in the National Hockey League. I get drafted. And now I'm coming. My college career is done. I'm coming to New York to sign my contract, and then they're going to send me to New Haven to play in the playoffs at the end of my college year. And the Rangers are playing that night. I wasn't going to be playing. I was just coming into the locker room, and I walk in the locker room, and first time I've been in an NHL locker room, and all the jerseys are hanging up there. Even Ron Big Nose Greshner, his jersey's up there, and Phil Esposito's jersey's there, and he walks in. It's the afternoon of the game. He walks in the locker room, and I could have died and gone to heaven right then. And I could see them, the trainers and Phil were whispering to each other. So obviously he doesn't know who I am, so they're telling who I am. And he comes walking over to me, and I was like, "This is unbelievable." But Phil Esposito is coming over to me in an NHL locker room, shakes my hand, and says, "Tom, great to meet you. I've heard all these great things about you. Can't wait to play with you." And it was incredible. Like he was, again, he really didn't know me, but it was the day of a game. He didn't have to say anything to me. I was a young kid, and he came over and talked to me, so he was fantastic.
Yeah, he was an interesting player. Like, I remember that one year where he scored 76 goals. I remember thinking, because by then I was always watching highlights, and I was thinking, with those 76 goals, he probably didn't. That was about 10 feet of actual shooting the puck.
Yeah, totally.
Because he was all deflection. I remember there was a bumper sticker in Boston that said "Jesus saves, but Esposito scores on the rebound."
Yeah, that was big. I remember that as a kid too.
Yeah, that was a big deal, and that was him. Some of my classmates call him Phil Fatstick because he had that big old stick, and it seemed like it had a wider blade. I know it didn't, but it seemed like it was wider.
Yeah.
Boy, he could clean up in front of the net.
He was great. He's a great team guy too. Like, he was hard. Like, you're going to be on his team. He demanded that you come to play, but he was great. Like, having young guys over. Phil Studio brought us over for. I say it was another Ron Greshner story too. I don't know if Greshner can remember. He's getting too old now, but obviously he's watching. But Phil, my first year, invited myself, Dave Silk, Ron Greshner, Barry Beck, Ron Duguay over for Thanksgiving dinner. That was another highlight. But now I know Greshner better, and I realize that it really wasn't a great event to have him there. But
yeah. You should hold Thanksgiving and invite all your ex-teammates over.
Yeah, maybe we will. Yeah,
it would be a healthier dinner than they'll have. So
yeah.
All right. Well, as usual, we've gone overboard, but we appreciate everyone for tuning in, and we'll be back next week. And it just, it seems like a long time until we're going to start again because we don't know when we're going to start again. But it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, yes, it will. All right. See you guys next week.